design a system that like may be used like at Pinterest or Instagram or someplace like that, where you you upload an image, and then once you've uploaded it, it'll find other similar content on the platform, but it should be based on the content of the image, so that you're not like the caption stuff you can use, but it in some way needs to incorporate the image, the actual image, like the image itself.
So okay, so it's like so I'm trying to kind of clarify a few things here. So if I'm uploading a few examples, let's say I am uploading a cat, right? What's the system supposed to give back? Is it like all the other cats?
So yeah, it would be, say you, for if that's your only image, or if that's your only thing in the image, yeah, maybe it would pick up, or it would recommend other images that have cats in them, or that maybe even pets. So it's like content that would be similar, that you might be interested based on that image.
Got it. So it is based on user interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And based on the how do you call it, as the assets within the image, right?
Yeah, like pixel values,
objects,
but
objects
yeah,
within that, objects within the image. So the system, based on my interest that it has learned so far, or it has whether I have explicitly mentioned that I am a cat person or whatnot, but and then is this more like I have my album, and it's recommending all the, like, for example, in Instagram or Pinterest, you can create these buckets, right? I think it's a board that's called as in Pinterest. So if you have a board and you have all the pictures within that board, so is it like a separate feed that shows up all the similar content?
Let's say let's say it shows like maybe 10 images, five or 10 images, depending on it shows some other content, like other people's images that
so there is
might,
something like a similar,
similar
content tab or something. When you click on it, it shows all the content that are similar to that, what I have either uploaded.
Well, it's similar, not necessarily similar content, but content that you might be interested in. So if you upload an image, I mean,
content
it's similar, it's a good, so similarity is a good,
similarity might be one aspect to it, but definitely there is a novelty, and got it. And is it is I mean, again, how do you have any thoughts around, like, what's the novelty of this in terms of, like, how frequent should we keep this updated? Like, something is trending in the world right now suddenly, and should that come up in the interested content immediately, or
you mean like so say you upload an image of cats and you have a whole bunch of people talking about cats? Are you talking about sort of new categories, like someone, like people are
let's say there is a
uploading
cat, and suddenly there is a Tesla cat, the Tesla launched a cat robot or something, and everyone is talking about that cat robot. Should that come up quickly, or is that, like, what's the
so maybe
real timeness of this?
Like maybe like a daily, doesn't need to be instantaneous, but within sort of the trend curves.
Fair enough. That makes sense, and it's probably better off to start simple and then go towards a
Yeah.
more real time stuff. And okay, and how do we assess these? Like, is it based on the user clicking on the particular image, or like, because image you are going to usually show a bunch of thumbnails, and it might not be very clear that the user has shown interest in that image, or is it like an interested content or not interested? So how does the user
Yeah. So like,
expect the
yeah,
feedback? Yeah.
so you like, you upload an image, and you finish the process, and at the end, at the whatever confirmation, the final, it'll also show other content that's similar to this image that you may want to check out. So it's kind of like it can continue engagement after someone uploads something, and then they're
Okay,
like,
so
oh, now I'm on the platform. Oh, here's some other cool things that you might like.
yeah, but the question that I'm much more interested in is like, okay, I uploaded this image and we showed a bunch of content that are that the user might be interested in. Would and since it's an image, it's often like thumbnails, right? You are showing these thumbnails of a bunch of like 10 or 20 interested images, right? Is So the idea of feedback comes up like, when does it mean like if the user clicks on the image, he is interested in it, or like it might be that he might still be interested in it, but he goes to the search bar and types more of that, let's say Tesla cats. Like,
Right.
how do we measure the feedback here is how I was trying
I'd
to
say, yeah,
learn.
through engagement with the list. So not necessarily clicking, but through normal mechanisms to measure engagement.
Okay, so
So not search, like, so if they start searching
yeah,
for other things, like, not that, we want
yeah,
them to, we want to basically create, if like, show them some things that to keep them looking. So maybe they click them, or maybe things
yeah,
like that.
yeah. I think probably if there is the um, we can take this assumption for now, that if we showed a bunch of thumbnails and the user clicked on a thumbnail, then that's a measure of success for that recommendation, right? So
Yeah,
that's
click,
some measure of,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. We
yeah,
can we can say clicking.
yeah. Click
Yeah.
should be probability of click should be a um, good
Starting point.
metric that we can
Yeah.
track for this in this picture. Yeah. And yeah, um, yeah, I think this is a good level of requirements that we can start to play against. And at a high level, as you mentioned, that the user is coming in,
Mm-hmm.
so he's doing this um, upload of a picture, right?
Mm-hmm.
So once the picture is uploaded, so we need to have uh, a couple of things that we need to quickly identify, right? Like, so identify what are all the objects within the image, right?
Mm-hmm.
That the user um, that might require again uh, usually the upload is a fairly quick process, and we need to identify, this cannot happen on a what I mean is like, usually when you are uploading things, you have a pipeline of things in the back end that happens as a part of this upload, right? Like things
Mm-hmm.
like um, downsampling, thumbnail generation, pushing to CDNs, even privacy or any kind of checks. So in this particular case, we need to have a quick, even though those things can continue to happen in the backend as a part of this overall product workflow for Instagram or Pinterest, but we need a way to quickly identify some of the key objects within that image. And once we have these objects within that image, and obviously we know the details of the user, we need to find a similar I'm trying to find the right name for this, because it's more like, not truly like, I would say, a recommendation system. uh, which will capture all the key aspects of this image along with the user, and um, provide a, a bunch of uh, content that the user can now go and engage and consume.
Okay.
So this is kind of at a high level what I'm thinking. And does that kind of resonate with your thought process?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
yeah, before we
I mean, we
delve
can,
deeper into,
yeah,
yeah,
dig into those two
got it.
boxes, objects within the image and recommendation service.
Yeah,
But yeah, the overall flow seems good.
got it. So so there are again, there is a couple of image object detection, right? Service, and we have a recommendation service, right? So so both of them potentially, again, um, object detection is a traditional ML or an AI service in terms of identifying what are all the key objects within an image. There are a few approaches at a very high level, right? Like, so using some of the out of the box foundational models, or we could train a model ourselves based on all the labels that we if we are able to collect all the
Okay.
labels, either by manually tagging them or working with some data provider to label all these images that we have so far. Based on
So
that, we can, yeah.
yeah, so is there, like, using labels will be really expensive? Is there, like, is there a way we can do this without annotation? So we like, we don't do any direct annotation with people, behind the scenes. So again, like, we're going to do this, if we're going to update this fairly
Yeah,
frequently, that's going to be really expensive.
yeah. So maybe one approach that I can do is or I can think of is something that um, we tend to, again, I'm just pulling something that we
Sure.
do in our domain. Is like we have what we call it as segments. Segments is just a bunch of users within that. So one of the aspects of this is like finding how much closer are these two segments, right? So it's kind of called a segment similarity, similar to what we are trying to find here.
So wait, segments are groups of people, or they're groups of content?
Segments are groups of people. I'm just giving you
Okay.
an analogy of a use case that we have, and then kind of
Okay.
extrapolating that and trying to see if we can fit the same logic here. Although I can already think of a couple of issues with that, but let me give you the example, right? Like, so a segment is a marketing segment is a bunch of users where you can say things like age between 18 to 35 in the US, interested in buying shoes, right? That's one segment. And you have another segment which is like age 20 to 40, and then interested in hiking, right? So obviously, if you think about it, there is a lot of similarity between these two segments. How similar for every company is something that we try to find out, and the approach that um, our um, our scientists use, and something that we can think of in this is like find all the embeddings for that content, or this, in this case, the segment, and similarly find all the embeddings for the other segment, and do some sort of clustering or the nearest neighbors to figure out how close these two are in terms of the vector space. So that's I'm trying to wonder if that's something that we can employ here. Although the problem I can think of it is like we talked about content that I'm interested in. So we might need to build those embeddings to incorporate all the things that the user is interested in, along with uh, uh, the embeddings for the image itself. Does that make
Well,
sense?
yeah. So we can stick to, I mean, for now we can stick to, say, just the image, what we know about the image itself. But the idea of using an embedding, I think, makes a lot of sense here. Like, can you expand on that?
Yeah. So you have content, right? So you have an image. Um, um, at least the way I am thinking about it is like we can build um, um, all the embeddings for that image, right? Um, um, mm, I'm trying to see if how we can build it based on whether we can use the user interaction history in terms of the user uploading this image and going and searching for some of the things, or just based on the features of the content itself. So that's for that. If it's based on the content itself, we definitely need some labels. So that's the aspect that I don't think it can just be based on the content, right? So it has to be based on the user interaction after the content is uploaded, or based on some metadata about the content itself, in terms of if I'm naming the picture, or geolocation, or other aspects that are not within the content itself.
Well, if we do sort of object embedding, like, we don't necessarily need to know what the objects are, right? Like, we can find similar objects, find images with similar objects within the database as well, right?
So but in order to get the object embeddings itself, right, like, so we need um to build the filters. And are you thinking of using some out of the box model for the embeddings? That, if that's the case, probably yes.
Well,
But if you are going to, yeah.
no, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was thinking like I'm not familiar on this computer vision, and if there is an out of box model that can provide like object uh,
Sure. Well, what if it was
embedding.
instead of the computer vision, what if it was like text, like
Yeah, like
you're
a
looking,
bird, right? Like, so yeah, word
or
to
not,
vec, or yeah, those kind of
or like you're looking,
models.
like, say you wrote a paragraph and you're looking for paragraphs that have similar
Mhm.
ideas in them.
Yeah,
Um, like,
yeah,
so in that sense, like,
yeah,
with something like
yes.
that.
In that sense, we don't need anything that needs to be, yeah. If something similar is available for the images, yes, we can definitely go to the image to vec kind of a model. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So, and then use those embeddings and then do some sort of um, um, like a nearest neighbor approach to get all the content that are closer to that user. Um, so we could actually also think of a few things, right? So again, this is what we do and probably relevant in terms of what we are trying to show here in term is like we could personalize all those recommendations for the user based on the probability of click. So we can, once we get the embeddings, so let me write it here. So um, so so obviously there are two parts. So in the offline world, we have the embeddings of all the content, and based on this image we will um, we will do like approximate neighbors of all the relevant um, content based on the embeddings of the object, and then I think this is probably not a right name in terms of an object detection service in this stage, more of uh, um, how do you say it as a similar item service. And then once we have the similar content, we need to now personalize based on
Okay.
based on the users, right? Like, so okay, now that I have found all the content similar to the image that I have uploaded, I will need to now rank them based on the preference, based on the probability of click, right? So for that, we need to now build a model, like a supervised model that can give you the probability of click, um, and then rank all the closest content, and then we can
So
we can, yeah.
yeah. So I'm a little bit confused on what does the similarity service do versus a personalization service?
Yeah, so similarity service, again, the way I understood it, and it's like it's you mentioned that that similarity service only looks at the content similarity, right? Like, so if what's the similarity from one content to another content, and it has no context of the user. Um, um, so this is just more like a candidate pool of content that the user that's again based on the corpus of either user interactions or again, this is the way part I'm not familiar in terms of how that that embeddings work, but uh, but this is not for that single user, right? So you might have a bunch of content that um, that is related to this current content that the user has uploaded, but once we have that list, we have no idea to say that, okay, hey, we have a Tesla cat and we have a real cat. Should I put the real cat first or the Tesla cat first? So that's the ordering of the content is the personalization services work.
Oh, okay. So it's sort of the similar service, like basically catches a whole bunch of items, right? Like
Yeah,
it
like
gets
a
a
candidate.
big,
Yeah.
and then the personalization sort of puts them into rankings that you would want to see. So, either
Yes. Based on,
like does a closer look.
yeah, based on the, I think the way we discussed is it's based on the content that the user interested in, and it's measured based on the probability of click. So it's tightly related to, yeah, like think of it like a search ranking or some product ranking, so
Okay.
that the first item has the highest probability of click. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And the first one is just sort of a net to catch as many, to narrow
Exactly.
down the search. Okay, that makes
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah. Again, this is where uh, my understanding of how this embeddings can be built is
That's
um,
fine.
yeah.
Um,
If it's based on the already the user interaction history, it might still not be ranked, right? It's going to be still based on the global corpus per se, and it yeah. And then
we'll say you could identify. So identifies around, or say you could um, put bounding boxes around sort of objects in the foreground of an image without knowing what they were.
mm-hmm.
Would something like that help with this? Like, could you use something like that to
for the similar items?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, obviously, right? Like, so if we find the bounding boxes, and we could identify all the objects, so then we can do some kind
So
of
no,
yeah.
you can't identify them. So you can put bounding boxes on them, but you know that they're non. You know that they're separate things, but you don't know what they are. Does that make sense? So like
Give
basically
me
you're
an example.
differentiating them
Yeah.
from the background and from each other, but not from, you don't know exactly what thing they are. Like, so you don't know that it's a cat. You just have a,
Oh, yeah. You saying okay? So it's just that we know the boundaries of the objects, but we do not know the objects itself.
yeah, or bounding boxes. But yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It
because
doesn't have to be
usually
with
the
a whole lot
bounding
of precision.
boxes. Yeah. Okay. Um. Yeah. I don't know, because like even if we have the bounding boxes, if we don't know what that is, there is no value in the bounding boxes itself, right? Because the context is only given with the labels on the bounding boxes.
Well, with image, you're with text-based systems, right? You have things broken down into like you don't necessarily know what London, if you have a sentence that involves London, you don't necessarily know what it is, but from the context, you can find uh other texts that, or other corpuses that
Yeah. So
have
if
either the word
you
London or
yeah, so I
you
think in if you have a paragraph, right, and the word gives some kind of context to the paragraph, then uh, I think that we can, or people do something like you can do a random walk of all the things in that paragraph, and of the words, and then we can do uh, like a skip gram or something to find the similarities, right? If that's
yeah.
kind
So
of
so
the
it's
word
like
context. But
yeah.
if
Are
there's
you
an image, yeah,
are
sorry,
you
sorry, go
familiar?
ahead.
Yeah, are you familiar with named entity recognition in
uh,
NLP?
e- e- I am familiar in the sense, right? Like, so I'm familiar in what it is, but I'm not familiar in terms of
Yeah,
how
no,
it
but
works.
yeah, so you can basically you can find entities, even new entities that are named. So like right, like that's you're
Yeah,
just recognizing what the entities are.
yeah,
So that's sort of a corollary for what I mean is that when you do named entity recognition, if you read a sentence, you can infer that London is, it's a place maybe, or you can likely you can infer that it's a place. But
yeah,
depending, maybe not even a place, but you can infer that it's an named entity rather than like a verb or action or things like that. Um,
hmm,
so I guess that's kind of the when I'm like an
yeah,
analogy for that is kind of what I mean with this thing that is able to identify objects. So it can basically think of it as like a named like an entity recognition for images. So you don't know
got it.
what's in
What the
them, but
entity itself is. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, you
Then
don't know what the yeah.
yeah, then it is definitely possible to find similar content based on that bounding boxes for sure. Yeah.
So can you expand on that idea?
So it's kind of expanding on the same thing, right? Like, so if we have all the uh, quote unquote entities that are within that that can be extracted um, from that image. So we know that, okay, this is an entity, this is an entity, and we can find similarity between that entity to other entities similarly extracted from the other images, and
Okay.
do the nearest neighbors um, um, or clustering or something to find all the similar content, right? So
Okay.
yeah,
Um, all right,
but uh, that in either case it will still not be uh, uh, kind of correlated to the user, right? Because this is
yeah,
on the global corpus. Yeah,
yeah, that's fine. It doesn't need to be correlated directly to the user. Let's say like if two
yeah,
people uploaded the same image, it would give the
it will
same result.
find that, okay, hey, these entities within that image are close. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's
So
all it
it
is.
wouldn't, yeah, it doesn't need to be specific to a person. It would be, yeah, if me and you
Yeah,
uploaded exactly the same image, it would, within reason give the same results. It wouldn't be dependent on my history versus your history.
exactly.
But okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And then, yeah, this is going to be like the ranking service for the result candidates. Obviously, this will have a bunch of things, right? One is we obviously need to weed off obvious things that the user is not interested in. Although, for example, if extending from the same analogy, that if I have explicitly said that I'm not interested in robots, and if we have a Tesla cat, which is a robot, so then those are things that we can obviously weed off. Um,
you
yeah.
so the secondary service also applies personal settings. So earlier
Yes.
you were describing it as something that ranks them. So similar
Yeah.
item service finds a whole bunch of things that are possible, and then personalization does
Yeah.
it take a closer look at those images, or does it personalize it based on you?
It's based on the user, but obviously it will. We can either think of it like, I think uh, I'm clubbing that under the personalization service, because like if I am a user and I have explicitly set, um, let's say there is um, uh, an image which is not, even though it's related to the cat, but it's not appropriate for the user or something like that. So we need to obviously filter them and not show them, right? Like, so this is for that user. So it that means it has to look into all the aspects of the candidates and then obviously filter them, that, hey, these among these 1,000 candidates, these 100 of them are obviously not going to work for this particular user, because his explicit um, interest list or blacklist says that we cannot recommend certain things for this user. That's the first stage. And obviously the second one is like, once we have this, we also know all the user interactions, and so we will have a ranking model that will rank all the content, and give the appropriate scores for each one of them.
And the
And
rank
this
is
is,
based. What's the rank based on?
yeah, the rank should be based on in terms of user interest, right? Like, so what he has,
I guess let me
based on the
rephrase.
user
What are the what are
user images.
what are the inputs to the ranker?
Yeah, so the input should be the list of candidates, which is the list of images, right? That
Right.
the similar items has returned. and the user features. Hey, what is my age, my like my location, what my explicit interests are, what is my average time within this app, like what is what's my intent of this, like for example, I'm interested in gardening, although I'm looking for I just upload a cat picture, but I'm interested in gardening, for example. So gardening is a theme that and that will be a feature for this model. My interaction history, right? Hey, I have um, I have so far uploaded or searched for all the garden pictures and cat pictures. So those interaction histories also will become features for this ranking model.
Okay.
This is the user features. The second one is obviously the list of uh, content and the content features, right? So, and then there might also be some context. Hey, if I am, what is the time of the day? Am I trying to look it up from my mobile? Like, uh, what's the short-term context that's needed? So those all could be inputs for this ranking model, and then it can give scores to the content based on these features.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So um
And then
we're pretty close to time.
yeah,
So we can start discussing feedback. Unless there's something you want to add, I just wanted to. This is the point in the
yeah,
interview where I would ask you if you have any questions for me, but
sure,
that's
sure.
this isn't a real one. So
Got it. Yeah, yeah. I think we couldn't go into details around like um, um, in I think we there are a couple of services here. So if we had time to talk a lot more on these personalization, yeah, because that's a little bit closer to my experience. Like we can talk more, but yeah, we can also talk about caveats, things like cold start, underfitting, those kind of things. So,
okay.
but yeah,
Um,
we can discuss them if you are
yeah, I mean,
interested.
we have to. Unfortunately,
Yeah, yeah,
we're at
I
time.
understand.
Um, okay, so all right, I can jump into feedback if you're ready.
Sure, sure.
Um, so okay, I guess the good stuff first is this interface really well, which is great. Probably, I mean that won't necessarily help you because they might be a different one, but if just make sure that that you maybe practice with a couple of different ones.
Hmm.
Um, just so you understand the overall. But this one you did really well for. Everything was really clean. You had really good organization. Um, the beginning was really strong too. You were very methodical in collecting information about what the thing that we're building was. You asked really good questions. You asked pertinent questions that were things that were left out of the problem statement that you would need that information to build something. Um, and you defined metrics that were reasonable. Um, that were reasonable for this thing, or we arrived at metrics. All right, so I guess on to some of the negative things that maybe you can work on. So I know computer vision isn't your forte, and that's totally fine. Um, but partway through you stopped drawing basically,
Hmm.
and that's okay. We're having a discussion, and that's fine. Um, but the basically the design i- overall just was incomplete, and you started adding the filter, the ranker, and those types of things. Like those should have probably been in the original drawing, or at least referred to in some way. when you dig in, because like ranking is usually its own thing. And then I was trying to lead you to basically, essentially the way these systems work is that they embed the image in some way, and that the embedding can be like whole image embedding, where you just look for images that have similar, similar colors. You can also do it with objects. So you, instead of finding, and like the name entity recognition, that stuff I was talking about, like if you know where all the objects are, you can look for images that have similar objects. You don't need to know what those objects are. And that makes it really straightforward to do it, to do problems like this. And that's true for any type of recommendation, like the recommendation systems that you would see during interviews. It's basically the image comes in, or the thingy, whatever it is comes in, you embed it in some way into some new space, and then you use that space to find similar things in the database. And then that gives you like 1,000, you basically cast a big net and you pull in a lot of fish. So that gives you a lot of things to look at, maybe 1,000. And then you pass that through a secondary service that basically takes an in-depth look at comparing each one. So it's usually a two-step process. So there's like the fast, big net, similarity search, database optimized. And then the second part is more of like a model, something that you would train to, like, are these two images similar? Are these two images similar? Or like, if I give you this image, would you click on this one? And then you rank them by that probability. So that's generally how those systems work. So it's kind of, there's really two ML components. You started getting there with ranking and filtering and things like that. It took a while to get to that point. And you also ignored the interviewer a little bit, not horribly, but like I was telling you, that we don't need to worry about personalization. Like if both of us uploaded the same image, you would give us the same rank, regardless of our past interests. But you kept running with the idea of personalization based on the user themselves. And so that, like, you just want to be wary of that, I guess. Does that make sense? So yeah, overall, I think you're really on the right track. You came out really, really strong. You have a lot of the foundations for the interviews. I think you need a little bit of polishing on, getting to things quicker, and maybe go through some of the common patterns for machine learning systems. Yeah, does that make sense? Do you have any questions about?
Yeah, but thanks, Jameson. So I think couple of things, right? Like, so those two ML components is how I was initially envisioning the the
Mhm.
the similar items versus I called it as personalization because I think it cannot be just based on, again, this is due to probably my lack of the domain knowledge in terms of how this model will be for the objects itself. But the way I was thinking is like you called it as like there will be a secondary service which will say, okay, what's the probability of click or something like that. That's exactly what a personalization or a ranking service would do, right? I'm trying to see
Yeah,
what do you mean by the difference, so that I'm trying to
yeah.
understand it better for preparation. Yeah.
So what I was trying, like, so it's okay. You're calling it a personalization system, and then I was trying to clarify what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and I was mentioning basically, like, if both of us who have very different histories on whatever service uploaded the exact same image, we would get approximately within numerical error the same feed. So essentially that the feed, or not the feed, but the recommendations that you receive aren't based on the probabilities of you clicking it. It's the probabilities of anybody, like the average probability of somebody uploading an image and then clicking on those things. So it doesn't necessarily take into account your history. So that being said, that's okay. Like you expanding into that, that's fine. Most of the time, if I had, but the only reason it's sort of a negative is that I specifically mentioned that it didn't do that. So you're like, it's just an example of
because
you were
I
on like,
understand.
yeah,
But
yeah,
because in one of the requirements, I may have misunderstood this, right? As the output is the content I as a user is specifically interested in.
yeah.
And the measure of engagement is probability of click, because then that's anyways going to be personalized for that user, right? If
Yeah.
both of those are the aspects which drove me to include this personalization service in the first place. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I can see that point of view. I'm just, if your interviewer is telling you,
Yeah. Fair enough. I think.
specifically, you should
Yeah.
like they could, that could be a curveball. Maybe they changed the
Yeah.
system. I wasn't. Maybe there was just a miscommunication in the beginning, but that happens. It's not like a big negative.
Sure.
It's that,
Yeah.
I mentioned it a couple of times. So just if the interviewer says something a couple of times, pay attention. That you get it.
Got it. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think overall, it's clear that you have a lot of domain knowledge. You're organized. You were able to get most of the answer. It's just that last little bit. I think that you need to work on, which the last 10% is the hardest always. But
Got it.
yeah.
And curious, like for the image models, I'm not familiar. Like, is there any kind of a good material that you can share, or even for text and images? Yeah, since I have not worked on those kind of models, I did read about them on the literature, and I've seen a couple of IK videos, but nothing. Those just gives you a very brief context, right? It doesn't go into the level of depth of an interview. So
I don't have any specific resources. You can look up what's it called? Content-based image retrieval. CBIR. That's a big one. And I forgot what the NLP version is. It might just be content-based delivery or document retrieval, something like that. Which is the NLP one, I think, is much broader and more fleshed out. The image retrieval is smaller, but things like like if you go to Bing, you can highlight a section of an image and it'll show you other images with that like that region of interest, like that bounding box in it. It's like stuff like that. Uses that idea.
Got it. Okay, I can. Thanks for the info.
Yeah. All right. Are there any more? Do you have any other questions? If not, I'll do your feedback and all that stuff shortly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this is good. Yeah, obviously, I think a little bit of this domain knowledge kind of took me out, and this curveball around kind of decrypting the content interested to the personalization. Yeah, it's a good experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's just practice.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, I think you did very well. Are you looking for jobs right now? Are you actively interviewing? Are you preparing for a specific interview? Or
I have talked to a couple of recruiters so far, but I have not not I've just put them on hold to make sure I'm prepared, because I have not interviewed for 15 years. So I am
Yeah.
to
I
prepare
know the
myself
feeling.
before I reach out. But I've talked to a couple of recruiter, one from Azure ML. You are from Microsoft, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I've one of my tasks is I've been trying to offload a lot of what we have been doing from an infrastructure to Azure ML. So I've worked with a few folks from the Azure ML team. So as a result, I got a contact from there. And
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know they were hiring. What do you know
yeah,
what group?
this is Azure ML services. So within the Azure team.
So, but is it, do you know, there's like labeling data models. You don't know which they might not
Do-
know yet,
Yeah, do
either.
you know Jitendra? Jitendra Veeramachan.
Um, the name sounds really familiar, but
Yeah,
I don't know them personally. If you want to, you can send me an email.
okay.
And I can, I don't know, it sounds like you might already have some inside info, but I can look up
Got it.
some details about it and share them with you from on the
Yeah,
Microsoft side.
got it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I sent a note, and then they said I'm interested to talk, and I said, like, let's schedule some time later once I'm prepared. So
Yeah.
the level of
It's a
conversation. Yeah.
if it's the teams I'm thinking of, they're really good, but
Yeah. But this is
they
mostly on the
yeah,
infrastructure. I think
yeah,
Azure ML infrastructure team, but
yeah,
I yeah.
the whole team is infrastructure pretty much.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, because they Azure ML doesn't actually build anything um that you would need.
Got it. Isn't there are a few out of the box services, right? Like things like
Cognitive
forecast
services, yeah.
and yeah, content AI services. Those are not. Isn't that part of Azure ML, or is it a different one?
Actually, I'm not sure. They
Hmm.
might be.
Hmm. Yeah.
But
Although
yeah,
while I'm doing these kind of stuff, I'm more interested in the applications these days rather than the infrastructure itself. Yeah.
yeah. Um, all right. Well, I have to run. I have another
Got
call.
it.
Um,
Got it. Sure,
all right.
I will send you an email. By the way, is LinkedIn a right way to connect with you, or
Sure. LinkedIn's fine.
okay?
And yeah.
I don't have
All
other
right.
contact info. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jameson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you have my email, don't you? We've been emailing each other.
Oh, yes. Then I can shoot you there. Okay, that's
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have a good luck and yeah, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.